Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Angra, Cycles of Pain, out November 3rd on Atomic Fire Records. The album has 12 tracks, 58 minutes in length, and this is the band's 10th full-length studio album. They are a Brazilian progressive power metal band. The design of this record, it just enhances the record. And it's not always the case with albums, but I feel a record like this, 12 songs, 58 minutes, you definitely have to put these songs together in a way that the listener can feel connected, can feel engaged with what it means to listen to this album from beginning to end. It's not just about getting the most out of the individual tracks, it's about creating a path, it's about creating a journey. This album does that, but it does it in almost a roller coaster ride style approach, where constant ebbs and flows, constant ups and downs, very dynamic, very fluid from that perspective. Now there are two songs that I find that are key in the overall design of this record, because of how different they are and what they offer to the listener in the design of the album. And that is Vida Seca, a song that has a heavy Brazilian influence, comes in the middle of the album, so you could say that it closes off side A. It's a track that divides the record, but it comes at a time where you feel like you could use something different, something out of the box, and this song is definitely out of the box. And then you have Tears of Blood, the track that closes off the album. Once again, another song that has no equal. It's a duet, very symphonically driven, and it's very unique in what it offers, when what it gives, both musically and vocally. And having that song as the curtain coming down on the album is absolutely perfect. The uniqueness of that track needs a little bit more of a pedestal, and being the closing song definitely gives it that pedestal. Now, as far as the sound is concerned, this is definitely more of a proggy record than it is a power metal album, but that's not to say that it still doesn't have a huge power metal and even heavy metal influence in it, because it does. I think the beauty of this album sound-wise is the ability of creating a very progressive sounding record that doesn't overdo it, that doesn't become a little bit too much, that doesn't saturate the listener with its own progginess, that still finds room for the power metal side of the band and all of the other influences that we've seen with this band across 10 records to have a place to breathe, to have a place to shine. For fans of a more power metal sound, this record's still gonna connect, because you're still gonna find it, even in the most proggiest songs, there's still power metal elements. In the most power metal sounding songs, there's still progressive sounding elements. So it's a very hybrid style record, but definitely a record that has more progressive side of it than it does power metal side of it. But the way they infused one into the other, they allowed to take the best out of both and create almost a brand new sound from it. That is the real essence of this album. It has one stronger common denominator, if you will, but it's the beauty of the infusion of both together to create this new experience that it is Cycles of Pain. And that new experience, that new DNA, that new fingerprint of sound that carries itself across 12 songs, it's impossible to deny the quality of it. You're going to see it in the production, you're going to see it in the overall sound, and how layered it is, how textured it is, and how rich it is. This is one of those records that you can just sit back and really appreciate all the different pieces, all of the different elements that went into making the sound. Either be the guitars, either be the orchestrations, either be the pianos, the bass, the drums. Everything finds room within the sound experience. One doesn't overshadow the other, one doesn't overtake the other. Everything has its size, and everything has a way of making those sizes fit together perfectly. It's a very well crafted record with great clear sound, great production that really emphasizes that clearness of the sound. And when you have that, then you're able to let the quality of the individual pieces come into the forefront and really shine. Everybody gets their moment, but it's a great sounding record globally speaking. There's not one single element that perhaps overshadows the other, because you really need them all in order to create this very unison sound and sonic experience all around. Now, I want to emphasize the guitars and drums, because I obviously really liked what they offer, but I honestly don't think they are the true driving forces of this album. Because when you look at the bass, for example, the bass has an incredible impact on the more proggier side of the record. It's almost becomes the calling card of that progginess, of that sound, of that essence. So it has such a great impact But for me, as more of a power metal fan than a prog fan, I definitely have to emphasize the work of the drums and guitars, because that's normally where my ears go to first and foremost. And in this record, guitar-wise, the versatility of the guitars are really the catalyst for the life of this album. They are one of the main ingredients in terms of changing from that more power metal sound to that more proggy sound. Then that prog sound gets emphasized by the bass, but the guitars are the catalyst that creates the change, that creates the movement from one to the other. And then really emphasizing how much strength the band has on one side of the spectrum or on the other side of the spectrum. The drums on this record have great depth, they have great warmth, they feel very connected. They're not just grounding the record, but they're giving the record a little bit of soul. And I think on an album like this, an album that has interesting topics as far as the lyrical content is concerned, that has interesting songs, that brings in the Brazilian influences into more than one song. It actually happens in two. Faithless Sanctuary is another track that has a huge Brazilian influence in the sound. That influence, it's very noticeable, specifically coming from the percussions. So having a drum sound that overall feels very warm, very earthy, that has a lot of substance in it, allows the whole record to be a little bit more connected to those roots. And so when you hear those influences coming through, it doesn't shock you, it doesn't surprise you, because there was still something there was some residues of it on the other tracks. So that's the reason why I think the drums have such a great impact, at least from my perspective. Now, vocally, Fabio Leone is phenomenal on this record. Talk about a connected and experience. Feels very organic, actually. The album feels almost straightforward to a certain degree. It feels loose. Nobody's holding him back. There's no restraints, and that really has a positive impact in his overall performance. His ability to tweak ever so slightly his delivery depending on the song, depending on the nuances of the song, depending on the guest vocalist on the song. And there's quite a few guest vocalists on this record. Lenini, you have Vanessa Moreno, Amanda Somerville. So you have quite diverse guest vocalists on this record that can do different things, that have different tools. And he showcases his range as well, and his tonality and his delivery, depending on the mood of the song, how dark it is. Is it a duet? It's not. Like, so there's a lot that he does on this record, and he helps give a lot of life to the life that already exists in the sound. And when you start to look at all of these pieces, when you start to look at all of these ingredients, it's impossible to look at this record and not say that this is one of their best records, because it is. It almost feels like it took them 10 albums to discover a sound, an essence that really defines who the band is. If you ask me, this is the album that culminates in the work that started 10 records ago. And you start to build, start to put bricks on that wall. Eventually the wall is finished. This album kind of feels that way to me. It feels like the conclusion of a very long road, of a very long process. Like I said, started 10 records ago. But all those learning lessons, all those paths that they took, all the difficulties that they faced, allow them to get to this point and create a record that's nearly flawless from start to end. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Vida Seca. I mean, it's a great song. It has that traditional Brazilian sound to it. Lenini opens up the song vocally, and I think it works really well. Like, the way it starts off as a very traditional folk, for lack of a better term, a Brazilian song, and that flavor permeates throughout the rest of the track, because the melody of the song that starts off stays on throughout the track, even though the track after that part moves on into a more heavier, bigger sounding experience, and Fabio Leone comes in with his voice, adding his flavor to it. The main melody of the track never changes. The volume just got bigger, the song just got heavier. It lost a little bit of that folkiness and gained more metal to the sound. But the progression from one to the other, it's really well done. It's really smooth, and keeping that melody going allows the track to feel connected and not feel like this song had like two parts to it. The bass plays an important role in this track. I thought that it really helped emphasize the more progginess of the sound. Amazing solo section, and then the track closes off with a chorus. This track has a great chorus. Fabio Lione really delivers the chorus perfectly on this track, and he adds a nice little spice to it. Next we have Faithless Sanctuary. This is another track. This comes halfway through the second half of the album, and this is a track that also has a huge Brazilian influence in it, and you see that influence coming across in the bass and drums specifically, and that becomes the catalyst to how the track moves. But it's always connected to those roots. This is a track that never goes too far off of those Brazilian roots. It's just a song that obviously all around has a little bit of a bigger, heavier sound. It's still very melodic, very progressive, and has a nice progressive touch as far as the guitars are concerned, that help give texture to the track, that help the vocals soar. The vocals come alive in this song. They really feel loose, free, uninhibited, and providing the most to the energy that the track has. But that infusion of Brazilian folk elements, almost tribal at one point, with progressive metal, it's perfectly done in this track. It's two worlds coming together, two worlds that you didn't think that could coexist with one another, but they do, and they do it perfectly from beginning to end. Last but definitely not least, my favorite track on the record, Tears of Blood. An amazing piano performance by Juliana Di Agostini, and then incredible duet with Amanda Somerville. The dynamics between the two vocalists, Fabio Lione and Amanda Somerville, are phenomenal. The lyrics are phenomenal. It feels like you're watching a play. It feels like you're watching a theatrical piece. You can almost close your eyes and picture the two of them on the stage playing out this song. The lyrics, the content of the song, the two of them facing one another. It's that captivating. The pianos really help paint that picture of a theatrical scene, but their vocal deliveries is really what keeps you connected to the track. It's a beautiful song all around. There's no other like this one in terms of the sound, lyrics, vocal approach. There's nothing that even comes close. It's the perfect song to close off the album because it's so unique, it's so different. You really want this to be the last experience that you get from this record, unless obviously you decide to press play and go from the start all over again. But you really want this to be that curtain coming down and the credits rolling up. It's that kind of a track. It puts an exclamation mark on any record. It's precisely now on this one, obviously, but on any record. It's a great closing song with great elements and an outstanding duet and piano performance. This is it. Angra, Cycles of Pain, out November 3rd on Atomic Fire Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.